What's happening?
How you
Long
doing?
time no see. Good to see everybody.
What's up,
introduce you
Dirk?
guys first, and then we can catch up real quickly. First of all, thanks for doing this, guys.
Okay.
When I was an 8th grader, 7th grader at Robinson is 7 through 12. I used to walk down to the gym and watch districts and regionals. So as you guys know, when you're a young ball player, you look up to the guys that are playing, and the biggest stage that we knew was regional. When you're a middle school ball player, when you see the guys playing on the regional court, I mean that's where you want to be. So we worshiped you guys. I didn't get to see Derek and Pete as much because y'all were in different districts. So, but I only saw you guys at the regionals. But I saw Haneef and Arnie. We called him Arnie back then, and Shakur. And I saw Chris all the time because they played Robinson, and it was a great matchup. But thanks for doing this. I just want to go around and for the people that are watching on YouTube, kind of introduce you guys. And I'm going to go in order that I see you guys. So don't feel slighted. First is Haneef Shakur.
Yeah.
Did I say it right, Haneef?
Man, yes, Haneef, man. You can call me Stroke or Arnie, whatever, man. It'll make no difference.
Okay. He was Arnie Russell in high school. He had an aura about him. Tony Ferris says his chest still hurts because of an elbow you shot him back at I'm sure he told Chris that story at college. But Arnie was a bad boy in high school. He brought the big scouts to the gym. You know, John Thompson was there to watch him at regionals. And just a great enforcer in the middle. Had a great career. Went on to play in Division I at Georgetown, and I believe Iona.
Iona. Yeah, I never played at Georgetown, but Iona. Yeah.
Yes. So, and then we have his teammate Chris Thompson. He was the glue that held that team together. Point guard, 2 guard, kind of did both of them, right, Chris? You were kind of versatile.
No, I never played 2 in my life. I thought I would, but I never did.
Always been okay.
1.
Yeah, but a clutch shooter, a battler, did a great job, kept the team together, hit some big shots, and then he continued his career down in Mary Washington with lots of other Northern Virginia players too. And then we got Derek Steele. Derek was a Mount Vernon basketball player and basketball and football star. Like Frank Smith, probably no one really knew what he would choose at the next level because he was very good in both. Probably some would have probably thought you were even better at football and basketball. You just kept coming, and they had to pay attention to you. Won a state championship at Mount Vernon. I'm sure Pete's going to have a lot to say about that tonight. But then went to James Madison and made some. I think he got to the NCAA tournament at least twice, and had some three times. Excuse me, which was that was a big accomplishment for a emerging program, and also had a couple big upsets as well. And then we have Pete Holbert. Pete is one of the all-time leading scorers in Virginia history. Mm-hmm. I mean, Pete was it's a shame there wasn't 3-pointers back then because Pete would have been shooting from the half court.
You're right about that.
Yeah, he would have been even tougher to beat. But I think he averaged 30 a game at Woodson. Had some, won districts. Almost got to the state tournament to get Red Jenkins that trip to states that he deserved. Then went to the University of Maryland, and I think always a great shooter. A lefty didn't probably play him as much as Northern Virginia fans would have liked to have seen, but got there. Was Len Bias's roommate and got to experience ACC basketball. So just to kind of set the stage, if you guys, in 1970, the late 70s, Jimmy Carter was president. We were at peace for the first time in a long time. There was no war going on. But there was inflation. Gas prices were on the rise. That was what we were really worried about back then. But it was disco. Disco was emerging. That was something that was brand new on the scene. So the music was going disco on one side, and it was going to hard rock on the other side. So the music was doing some different things at the time. Fairfax County was changing. Derek did what many families were doing. The county was getting more diverse in the West. It used to be there was very little diversity out in the western part of the county. And soon Mount Vernon High School went from being all white in 1965, 66 to be, a very diverse school by the time Derek Steele got there. And then also in terms of high schools, there were so many high schools emerging in the western part of the county. It was Chantilly was built, Lake Braddock was built, Robinson was built, South Lakes was built. So all of a sudden, the region was getting bigger. So things were changing really quickly. It was just an exciting time to be a basketball fan, and you guys were doing it on the big stage. So also, I was just thinking, 1980. By the time you were seniors, that was probably about time for Miracle on Ice. That was when the U.S. hockey team beat. Yeah, that was probably the biggest. My sister was playing for Robinson, and you guys probably knew her. Julie Brown was a star. She was a point guard at Robinson. I remember I was at a game, districts, when that game was happening. So I'm sure you guys were on the court somewhere as well. So anyway, so why don't we start with Haneef? And why don't you, quickly or take your time, whatever, give us your background, your mentors, how you started playing basketball. I know TC was one of these places where not all the star players from Alexandria went to TC. Some of them, they went there and didn't play. Some of them transferred, like Derek Steele and some others after him. So tell us about your basketball upbringing and about your sports parents and those kind of things.
Well, I grew up in Alexandria, right in the projects, right near Alfred Street and Montgomery Street. And the people that played sports in my family my mom was a phenomenal basketball player in North Carolina, high school basketball player. Actually, she would always quote the scoring thing that she had. She would score 495 out of 602 in a season. So she would never let me live that down. So growing up in Alexandria, I mean, everyone played either basketball or football or baseball. It was always camaraderie. It was always, you had to always give your best. We had different neighborhoods, South Side, Del Rey, projects. You always had to come with your best game. And I just remembered in John Adams when I first started picking up the basketball, and that I knew, I felt like I could do something. And man, from then on, it just took off, and I just fell in love with it. And I just played. It was never a time when I didn't have a basketball. I would play in the snow. We would go out and shovel the snow at Westovers, shovel the snow, and when it's cold, the basketball is hard. So we were putting up bricks and all that stuff, man. And it just growing up in Alexandria, it was just the best place to grow up. I'm telling you, as far as basketball is concerned. So I loved it. I loved it, man.
Arnie, did you play other sports? Did you play football
Yes,
or other sports?
I played my first trophy was in baseball. I played for a little league team called I can't remember what it was, in Orlandria, Del Rey Hardware. I got my first trophy in baseball. And then I played a little bit of football. I played a little bit for Coach Boone. And I'll never forget, they called an 08 pass. And we were playing at Washington Lee. And when he threw the ball, I caught it. And the guy was looking at me like a water boy. And ever since that tackle, I said, "No, I don't think I want to play football anymore." I don't think I want to play football anymore. So Henson said, "Okay, son, you're going to need to make up your mind. What are you going to do?" So I chose basketball. Ever since then, it's been the love of my life, man.
Yeah. And one thing I learned from the Alexandria kids, you all played for your rec center. So you may have already said it. What rec center did you play for?
Charles Houston.
Charles Houston, okay.
Yes, Charles Houston. And then we would go to different rec centers. All around Alexandria. We would go to Mount Vernon, Core Kelly, on the south side. You would just go to different basketball courts, and the basketball courts would be full. Chris knows what I'm talking about. Westover, it would just be a everyday event. You would have the young ladies out there, you have to show off for the young ladies, man. It was just great. It was a great environment, great neighborhood, great environment. Yep.
That's great. Okay, so Chris, why don't you go next? You were the steady Eddie of the program. You were the guy they could rely upon. How did you get started? Your parents, what neighborhood? Who'd you play for?
Born and raised in Alexandria. My parents were born and raised in Alexandria. Back my family had a deep basketball history. My father, my uncles, Parker Gray was the black school there, and growing up as a Thompson, I didn't know this, but I thought my uncle was talking trash. But my uncle is in the T.C. Williams Hall of Fame for playing basketball. So basketball was something that you did in our family, and I had two older brothers. One was 8 years old and one was 7. And Arnie and Derek both probably know Jeffrey.
Yes, sir.
So we grew up together. All three of us, Arnie, Derek, and myself, grew up together. Derek and I played baseball together when we were 9 for the Departmental Progressive Club, Little League Baseball.
Yeah.
So I was a football player. I wasn't a basketball player. I was a very good football player. I was known for football. and we had this coach at Charles Houston named Lucky Elliott. He's a legend. Anybody from Alexandria knows who he is. He coached football, basketball. He coached everything, and he kind of took care of everyone as far as that goes. And I didn't become a basketball player until, like Arnie said, until I realized the girls like basketball. So the basketball players got the names in the papers, the pictures in the city of Alexandria, had the Alexandria Gazette. They were always following T.C. Williams. So so when we were younger, I was like always on the B team for Charles Houston basketball team. I was never one of the players. So what I had to do is I had to go out, and back in the day, I don't know if y'all remember this, but Red Auerbach used to have this little show where he'd show you drills. Yeah, and I never went to a basketball camp. I couldn't afford it. I grew up in the projects, right up the street from Arnie, about 3 or 4 blocks from Derek.
It was called round ball. It was on during the NBA telecast.
Yes, it's coming at halftime, and he'd show Calvin Murphy doing the drill, JoJo White. So and those were the drills, and that's how I learned how to play basketball. And then once, like Arnie said, you had to bring your game. And I didn't have game, so what I had to do was I would go out there at 10 o'clock at night and learn some game. Football I was good at, and everybody respected me in football. Basketball, I didn't really come along until this guy who played for TC named Morris Mills, who lived in our neighborhood. He grabbed all the little neighborhood boys, and we went to the boys club, which was up the street from my house. And we got a team, and Arnie knows these names: Pop Weed, Timmy Wigglesworth, Tommy Parker, and we started practicing. And that's when I realized I could be. First of all, I knew that I was always going to be a role player. I always knew that. I couldn't jump. I wasn't quick, but I had a pretty high IQ of the game, and I knew how to get people the ball. And I knew defense and being able to run that offense would get me on the floor. And so once I figured that part out, I had another coach named Darryl Turner, who also taught me how to do some drills and how to play. And
they call him Red Rose, right?
Red Rose. He's my cousin. And he kind of saw that I had a little bit, and he took me under his wing and showed me some stuff. So long story short, by the time I was in the 9th grade, I was good enough to be the freshman starter at GW. Had I gone to Hammond, I would have been on the bench because Derek Steele was at Hammond.
Yeah, that's right.
See, so I was lucky when they changed the zone. We lived 3 blocks away, but he went to Hammond. I went to GW, and GW didn't have the depth and the talent. Like Arnie was at Hammond, but Arnie in Hammond, he got moved up to varsity in the 10th grade. So long story short, I was a late bloomer basketball wise, and I wouldn't be on this screen if I didn't have players like Arnie and the teammates that I had, because I knew that I was a role player through and through, and I was able to ride the coattails of Big Stroker and the rest of our players. We had some monsters.
Well, you definitely need role players. Derek Steele will tell you about that. But I did the podcast for the Earl Lloyd induction into the Hall of Fame. Jim Lewis, Coach Lewis, gave me that opportunity. So I'll definitely share that link with you. I think you'll enjoy it. It was a great event. It was kind of marred a little bit because of the COVID, but we did the best we could. Also, Chris, what position did you play in football?
In football, I played almost everything. And little rec ball, I played running back and linebacker. And then by the time when I was at GW in the 10th grade, I was the quarterback. In fact, after the 10th grade, when Derek went to Hammond, when Derek went to Mount Vernon, I went to Bishop Ireton. I was recruited to Bishop Ireton for football. And I went to Bishop Ireton, and I went to camp for football for Bishop Ireton. And Coach Boone and Coach Henson, Derek had left. So they both called me and said, "Hey, what are you doing over there? You're Titan." So I came back from Bishop Ireton. I was being recruited by Bishop Ireton and St. Stephen's because I was a quarterback and the point guard at GW. And I was a student at the time, so I was recruited. And I went to GW, I went to Bishop Ireton, and I transferred back. And that was mainly because Derek Steele went to, no, I'm serious. When they realized Derek Steele was gone, and we were both point guards for GW and Hammond, that's when they called me.
Yeah. Well, I got a feeling Derek might have a different take on that, but let's go to Derek Steele next. And Derek, you can assume that folks did not see the Mount Vernon one because you got a great story. So please tell it again. But why don't you give your background? I know it's a little different these are native Northern Virginians, and you were kind of an Army brat. So why don't you get us
Yeah.
up to date?
Well, let's kind of go back a little bit further. Even though I was an Army brat, I was actually here in Virginia as I guess in third, fourth, and fifth grade before we took off and went to Hawaii. And so I met a lot of people at that point in time, and just was inspired. I loved playing any kind of sport. I didn't really care what it was, but I was a tiny dude. I mean, I was, I didn't know I was tiny, but I was tiny. You know what I mean? And as we went through the process of that, you better have at least some speed or some an ability to go out there and play in order to make things happen. But the person that kind of inspired me, well, there were two people. My dad was my football coach. My brother was an incredible basketball player. So he's the guy I'm still trying to beat to this day. My goal is to beat him. I don't care if it's 77 points we got to put up. I want to put up 78, but I haven't been able to beat him yet. So that could be a challenge. But so I was here. We left, went to Hawaii. That was a great experience for me because over there in that part of the world, you have an opportunity to kind of thrive, and that was great for me. I learned how to really play the game and had some great experiences with that. But then when I came back in my 9th grade year, and actually I went to Hammond High School, just like Chris said, and for both football and basketball, I wasn't starting. Basketball, I barely played. Oh man, you talk about fueling the fire. Look, I just couldn't understand how come I was not playing. So just like Arnie said, we went out to Westover Park, and there was a big game that was supposed to be out there. And I was out there warming up and doing all that kind of stuff. And my brother told me, hey man, you can't play in this one. What? What do you mean I can't play in this one? You know what I mean? Because that was a money game. I didn't know what that meant, but bottom line, I wanted to play. So from that point on, I was like, I am not going to be sitting on the bench, not playing, forget all that stuff. And I just went out there and worked on my game, worked on everything that I could. I wanted to be better going left, going right, all of that stuff. I did have to choose between football and basketball. I loved them both, but they were just different. You know what I mean? And the one thing about basketball that I enjoyed was just the skill set that you had to bring, plus the physicality and the finesse. So all of that was just a part of the puzzle. I did have a scholarship to actually play football at James Madison University. And I was, the thing that kind of threw me off from that, which I didn't realize once I got the scholarship, is that they said, well, you can't play basketball anymore. You have to play spring football. I'm like, what? You got no basketball? Wait, what kind of stuff is this? I was lucky enough that the basketball coach from came down and saw us play in a Capital Classic preliminary game and practices and all that stuff. And he asked me, was I seriously interested in playing basketball? And I said, yes. And he gave me a scholarship on the next day. He went back and talked to the school. He came back because I was already, able to get into the school. And he gave me a scholarship on the next day, and I was excited about that. But when you sit down and you think about the people that were around in the Alexandria, Mount Vernon area, I mean, we were playing ball, just like Arnie said, everywhere, anywhere we could, everywhere. And when we had the opportunity to go further out and go play in, Oklahoma, go play in Boston Classic and all those things, man, we had a ball, but we then represented the Northern Virginia, DC area. And we brought the table, we brought it to the table to go out there and do what we could. So for me, it was just inspiring to have all these people who chiseled me to become better, because if you didn't get better, you weren't gonna play.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I learned that when I was young. So that happened for me, and it kind of inspired me to go out there and do the best I can.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's go to Pete now. I know Pete's another one of these guys that somehow ended up in the Woodson district, where he probably didn't always live there. So it seemed to happen to these Woodson these leading scorers of Woodson. They tend to just kind of sprout up out of nowhere. But Pete, why don't you give us your background? You know, your parent. I know your dad knew Red Jenkins. You know, where you grew up, where you started playing your ball, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I actually grew up right across the street from Falls Church High School. There's a neighborhood, you go right down Jaguar Drive across Route 50. There's a neighborhood called Pine Springs, and Red Jenkins lived in that neighborhood. And I was a 5-year-old little kid, like about 1967, 68. I was shooting hoops, and Red came by and he stopped and he goes, "I thought your son was only 5 years old." And I was, you know, already up to my dad's chest, you know, I was pretty big. And he goes, "How tall is he supposed to be when he gets done growing?" You know, because back in those days, they doubled your height or whatever at 3. And he said he's supposed to be 6'8". I only made it to 6'6". And when he told him 6'8", Red was like, "Oh my God, we got to get you a house out in Woodson," you know. And it turned out that my dad was already looking to get a house out there. So we had a neighborhood out there, and there's a neighborhood called Churro. My dad was an airline pilot. So I was fortunate. We grew up pretty affluent, you know, so I got to go to all the camps, Thigh Star. I'd have loved to take a Stroker along with me. You know, he would have been recruited by everybody probably. But I had the advantage. I had the exposure, you know. There were probably some guys that were as good or better than me in DC area, but I just got so much exposure playing for a guy like Red. And I remember one game, it was raining at Thigh Star. And the college coaches are all spread out, you know, watching, you know, a few guys here and a few guys there. When it rains, they all got to come to the gym. And I just had this big game. Eddie Fogler wrote a letter from North Carolina, said, "I just saw Pete go 12 for 12 against Red Bruin, you know, who was a year ahead of us, went to Syracuse." And Joe Dean Davison from Kentucky sent Red a telegram, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, everyone's like, "Well, Pete's pretty good, but he's no second team All-American," you know. Well, you know, I got to put in all the right spots, you know, and I had that advantage, and I was playing for Red and having a dad that could send me to all these camps, you know. And the other thing that Red did for me that was really good is I got to play for Doc Robinson. I don't even know if you guys know who he is, but that was the Elite 10 Boys Club downtown. And that's where Earl Jones played, Billy Martin, Adrian Drance, Johnny Dawkins, you know, Anthony Jones. I mean, you name it, Thurl Daly. That was the AAU team. If you're on that AAU team, you were going to the national championship or coming second place. And I got to play with those guys, you know, and Red got me on there too. So I got a lot of good exposure. We pretty much, as far as just pickup ball, we just played with each other after school, and then the fall, and then as in the team, and then maybe like Mike Tissall would come over, you know, from Robinson because he was nearby, or Fernando Onion from Stewart. He was a good player. Those guys would come down and play every now and then, but mostly, you know, me and Tissall would just play against each other, you know, because me and Tissall literally lived like, we 2 miles away from each other. It wasn't that far. And we were just a year apart. So we kind of pushed each other. And then we had the counselors games at Red's camp, and the Jealous Summer Leagues were amazing. We got to play in that. That was another big advantage that I had. You know, just great exposure. So I didn't know it at the time, but I had so many more advantages than some. Like I'm looking at Derek right now. You know, I mean, I got a lot of exposure. You know, so maybe in some ways I probably should have played at Madison with Derek. You know, I started there, you know, and played, you know, or something. But you know, in Maryland, you know, I had guys like Albert King, and they said, well, when he leaves, you know, you'll start. Well, then we got Adrian Drance and Lynn Bias, and Lynn Bias is better than Albert King, you know, and it just kept coming and coming. So I've had so many coaches come up to me and said, you would have done a really good mid-major.
Yeah.
You know, and, sometimes you got to pick the right space. Like, you know, they're, you know, played on all those great teams. I'm trying to think of the guys' names you played with, like Linton Towns and
right.
you know, when he moved on. But I mean, I would have fit in with you on that team there. And I thought about transferring, you know, to a mid-major. And but I just no regrets. But I almost had it so good with all the camps and playing for Red and AAU exposure I got that you know, Maryland might have just been a little too high a notch, you know, with all the talent that he had coming in. I always like to use the example of Greg Manning, who was a senior when I was a freshman, and they had JoJo Hunter, Turk Tillman, Billy Bryant, and then Greg Manning. And Greg Manning was the 4th-string point guard. And all those guys transferred and became the top 3 scorers in the country. And then Greg Manning got to play. But I mean, you almost have to have that kind of luck, the way Lefty, you know, recruited in those days. You know, you either got to be a lottery pick or you're not going to play, you know, at some positions, you know. So, it was great growing up. All the pickup games. I don't know if y'all went and played at Nottoway Park. Did y'all ever go there? It's kind of out of the way for you guys. It was in Vienna. They had a lot of good pickup games there. And it was just a blast. It just seemed like we started out, you know, Red had his tree seasoning. We had the season. It went to AAU. We worked at Red's camp. We went to 5-star. We played in the Jealous Summer League. And then we rebooted and did it all over again. You know, it was awesome. Those 4 years went by like that, you know. So it was great. You know, it was a really good time, you know. No regrets.
Well, you saw yourself short. You know, you had advantages, but you were a great player. You made a lot of shots. That wasn't given. Sometimes in sports and in soccer or in basketball, especially, growing up rough is almost an advantage. Most of the guys, if you look at the pro soccer leagues, those kids came from Africa and Brazil. Poor kids. Basketball, those kids are from the streets. So if you're a good player, you're a good player. And sometimes having a little adversity to come over actually makes you a better player anyway. So I want to go to Haneef next. So, you know, what was it like being a student athlete at TC Williams in the late 70s? Give an example. At Robinson around that time, you go to school, there was a huge smoking lounge. There'd be 1,000 people smoking between classes. And there was a lot of pressure on kids to do drugs and because the pretty girls were out there and everything. It was a lot of pressure. The athletes, some of them were involved in those pressures. By the time I got to high school, class of 84, you know, most of the athletes weren't doing drugs by then. That time kind of passed. But what was it like at TC to be a student athlete? And Chris, you can follow on Haneef on this one.
I can tell you right. I didn't have any luck with the girls. I'm sorry. I had no luck with the girls. I don't know what the heck I was doing, but I had no luck with the girls. Number one. Number two, it was just strictly fast. TC Williams was a phenomenal high school because it brought all the people that you saw when you got out of school, and you can hang with them, but you went to school with the same people. It was such a unique place that all the people that we used to hang out in and play basketball with, then we would go to school. My high school days are really cloudy because all I really focused on was basketball. I can tell you guys this one thing. When I was growing up I got an older brother and a younger sister, and I was the middle child. When I saw that basketball gave me the attention, I latched onto that thing, Julian, like it was the last thing that I could ever put in my life. And I'm gonna tell you, in that TC Williams, the games were phenomenal. The high school environment, and then also I played band. Also, I played the tuba. Also, man, it was just incredible. It was just incredible to have all those people, and have the teammates. And I'm gonna tell you something. My teammates with that year and those years were incredible. Those were some of the best years of my life. Right. TC Williams was something else, man. I would never ever forget it. Never ever forget it.
And Chris, would you second that? I mean, was there pressure if you're like Haneef or yourself, star athletes?
No, I was never one of those people personally that would fall to those pressures. I was laser focused on getting out the projects, and like Arnie said, when we went to TC, it was unique because if you think about the whole city, everybody who's your age goes to school with you. So when we went there, it was just 11th and 12th grade the first year. And then the next year they brought 10th graders, and we had 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, and we had a graduating class of over 1,000 people.
Wow.
So when you see somebody from Alexandria, you know them if they're in the age group, either a year above you or a year below you. And it was phenomenal because, just like Arnie says, I mean, that was to this day, that was the most fun I've ever had in my life. To this day, and I've had some great times in my life. Those group of folks that we had as a team, we were one. And really, when you at TC, when you played basketball, you were a rock star.
Yeah.
You were a rock star. If you made those 12 people who played basketball for TC Williams, you were a rock star. And when I grew up, I didn't grow up wanting to play college. I wanted to play for TC.
Play for TC Williams. Yes, sir.
That's all I wanted to play for.
Yes, sir.
So I reached, when I got to TC, I was it. That was it. Because that's exactly how it was back then. I mean, to make it to TC, you made it. And that's how it was. So it was phenomenal.
Well, Derek, you're from a military family, and you transferred to Mount Vernon. What was it like to be a high school student athlete at Mount Vernon in the late 70s?
Well, before I go to Mount Vernon, when we came back, I was at Hammond High School.
Mm-hmm.
When I transferred to Mount Vernon, I knew more people at TC than I did at Mount Vernon. I mean, even when I graduated, it was probably that case. But as you go through, the part of the reason that we transferred is my brother, who was, like I told you, a pretty good player. He actually came in during his senior year when they had Little Willie and all them, and they went to states and all that. And my brother made the team, but he wasn't going to play. Like in the football years, he didn't play. And so, but he was a phenomenal athlete. And then when they gave him a chance to play, he was a running back, got 130 yards first game he played. My dad wasn't happy. He's like, oh no, we are leaving because, and there was multiple reasons, but he and Boone got into an argument, and we moved out to the Mount Vernon area. And I didn't know anything about Mount Vernon. I just knew that when I got there, the guys were sitting there saying, hey man, you're coming from TC or you're coming from where? You ain't gonna play here. You ain't gonna make it on our team. So again, you remember that field that I was talking about that kind of was where people chiseled me already? Y'all ain't gonna sit me on the bench. So I played football, had a great time there. And I was pretty good at what I was good at, not only in the athletic realm, but I was a pretty good student. I was in trigonometry and bio 2 and all of those things. So, I didn't realize how important that was, but that student athlete, that student part that allows you to go out there and get noticed by some of these schools was the difference for me, because, once you get an opportunity to go out there and play, people are going to ask, well, what are your grades like? So to offer me a scholarship, they felt like I could actually do what I needed to do. But being in the Mount Vernon area, bottom line is we had to compete against TC. You know what I mean? Didn't matter. You know what I mean? If we didn't beat or play well against TC, well, first of all, you better beat them, because if you didn't beat them, they were going to talk junk. I don't care who you were. They were going to talk about you. They're going to talk about your mama. They're going to talk about your sister. That's just the way it was. It was like, oh, no. Look, I remember our first football game. I came back at TC. They were telling me all kinds of junk. Man, we are going to bury you. You are traitor. Man, they went after us. You know what? We had to beat them, because if I didn't beat them, they would be going to talk about me to this day. So lucky to get a win at TC, which that was the hardest thing to do.
For the record, they smoked us that Saturday morning. Hey, look,
the score is like 51-49. We didn't smoke anybody.
That was a smoke and we lost.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But bottom line is that, after the game, we're still boys. You know what I mean? Man, hey, we're going to talk trash, we're going to do whatever. But bottom line, you still had a family of people who really wanted to see you do well, just not that day. You know what I mean? So, but that's just the way that it was. That's how it always has been. And that Mount Vernon TC rivalry, that's on to this moment. So, it was just a part of who we were and what happened right down on that Route 1 corridor.
You know, it's funny. You talk about TC talking junk. I used to hate throwing the ball in because in the garden, you'd be right by the TC fans.
Right
So I
behind
get,
you.
yeah, I get, man, you're too short to be out there. You can't, why are you out there? You can't play basketball. I mean, I used to hate throwing the ball in. People would, I mean, it was good nature, but I mean, they would just ride me. Yeah, I was the only black player on Robinson. And so they were just going to ride me as soon as I entered the gym. But anyway, Pete, what about Woodson? What was it like? I know Red would roll out the red carpet for you guys, and you guys were big stars. And what was it like being a student athlete at Woodson? And were there pressures at Woodson, you know, from that time period?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, Red had such a great program. He was a real proponent of you know, having a freshman, JV, and varsity team. So you felt like you didn't get lost, you know, and people don't realize how important that is. Only the Northern Virginia has that. You go around the country, there's JV and varsity, and the more rural you get, you just got varsity. That's it. Very few places have freshmen. So he was really good at keeping people involved. He used to say, I don't want you to get off the basketball team and start working at people's drugstore. Because if you do that, then you're going to start having the girlfriends and, you know, wanting to have money and buying nice clothes, and then basketball's done. So he wanted to have a spot for you, you know, and I was fortunate enough, you know, I only played 2 games as a freshman on the JV team. And I scored like 40 points at both games. So Red moved me up to the varsity. And then the seniors on the team said, you know, we waited a long time, you know, to start. You're not playing. They didn't rough me up or anything, but they let me know it wasn't your time yet. And yeah. I didn't handle that well. I kind of had some self-gratitude that I made the varsity as a freshman.
Was that Chris Nocke's team, those guys?
Well, those are all the guys that sat the bench behind Chris Nocke, David Nussbaumer, you know, Pete Deck, and those guys, you know, and we literally had 19-year-old seniors, 3 of them, that had been waiting to play. And so they weren't having any part of me playing. And I was probably the 3rd best player in the team behind Arnold Mancini and Rusty Umberger. But I just kind of, you know, I didn't handle it well. I should have said, you know, hey, screw that. You know, I'm the 3rd best guy in the team. You know, I can probably score 15, 20 a game as a freshman, you know, and I didn't. I just kind of, you know, went with the flow. And so, because there was kind of that hierarchy, I had some respect for that. You know, these guys have waited, put all that time in the system, started on the freshman team, started on the JV team, sat the bench their junior year, and then it was their time. So Red was really, he liked to have a system like that. And it was a big deal if you made the varsity as a sophomore. As a freshman, no one had ever done it before. I think the only other ones that had done it is Tommy Enneker and Greg Williams, you know, in the whole 35 years they had it there. So I kind of interrupted you know, upset the apple cart a little bit. But yeah, it was real good. As far as the girl, you're talking about the girl thing, every time I got a girlfriend, it was always after basketball season. And then I went away to camp and AAU all summer, and I always got a Dear John letter, you know, saying, hey, when you're gone, I'm going to date the lifeguard, but my mom made you write a letter. You know, in those days, you had to write a letter and get a phone call, you know. So, you know, it was kind of a rock star thing at Woodson. I have to admit, you know, being on the basketball team, that was probably bigger than any of the other sports. We had good football, good wrestling, good baseball. You know, we won a few state championships in baseball after I left, but it was kind of a rock star thing, and Red developed that. You got to give it to Red, man. I mean, it was unbelievable playing for Red. You know, I know everyone loves their coach. I mean, McCool, who Derek played for, oh my gosh. You know, I don't think I ever beat McCool. I think I had 2 games, the regional championship game we lost, and then the next year, Derek, didn't we play you the first game of the year the next year at our place?
I think so.
And we lost that game. And we didn't. I mean, we both of us lost all our starters except you and me. So there were two new teams, but we lost that game. So McCool always. I don't think I ever beat him, but you know, you play for a guy like that. You know, it's an honor, and I remember just getting to Woodson my first day and just having a bounce on my step that, you know, I'm going to play basketball at Woodson, you know, the next 4 years, you know, kind of just the same feeling these guys are talking about the schools, you know, TC Williams, you know, and I tell you, TC Williams, even when we weren't in the Northern District anymore, that game, you marked that game on your schedule.
Yes, sir.
And when we played Derek Steele and Junior Brown and those guys in the regional tournament, there were a lot of good teams that year, our junior year, but everyone was thinking that it was going to be Mount Vernon and Woodson in our regional championship game, and it was. We lost another one by 2 points.
We're going to get to that game. Before we get to that season, I want you guys to talk a little bit about your coaches. Now we know a lot about Coach McCool and Coach Jenkins, and we want to hear more about them as well. But Coach Heinsohn was a different type of dude. He was, most folks don't know this, he was an All-American at Chowan Junior College, leading scorer there. He was a great player himself. I believe he's from Alexandria as well. He never got the credit as a coach because he didn't appear to be an X and O's guy from the outside, and everyone just figured TC had all the athletes. But people who know him give him a lot of credit for the things that he implemented and the fact that he kept the program together and kept those great teams together. So Haneef, why don't you get started? What kind of coach was Mike Heinsohn, and what did he mean to you?
First of all, Coach Heinsohn was a disciplinarian, and you had to be in shape. Even before you stepped on the court, you had to be in shape. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When we first stepped on the court, when the season first began, we didn't touch a basketball. All you did was ran. You had to run what was called the diamond, and that was like 3.5 miles or something. You had to do that before you even did that. You had to qualify for the 6-minute mile, which I never made. Was Christian that was trying to carry me around the track to get me to keep going. So in other words, you had to be in shape even before you even stepped on the court with Mike Heinsohn. You also had to be accountable for your grades. You could not step on the court. We had an eligibility card that you had to get signed. One of the most disappointing things was playing against Pete that year, and that was one of the games. I mean, we wanted to play. Man, I wanted to play Pete so bad. Oh my God! And I messed around and didn't get the eligibility card signed that week, and I wasn't able to play that game. And I'm telling you, so he was a disciplinarian. You also had to be in shape. And you also had to be accountable, and you also had to be responsible for what you had to do. Now, not only saying that, he was also supportive, and he didn't play. Mike Heinsohn did not play with you. If you're not, and he would go on in the court, and he would post me up, and he'll give you an elbow. And at one time, he gave me an elbow in practice. I was like, Coach, man, that's messed up. I'm a high school player. I mean, he played hard underneath there. I'm telling you, he was a phenomenal coach. I loved him. But the side part, they were a tandem team. Without Doc Heinsohn, I mean, they had each other's back. And I learned a lot from him. But most of all, what I learned from him was the fact that you had to be a student athlete in order to even get on the court. And you had to have your grades. You had to do what you had to do in the classroom before you set foot on that court. And you also had to be in shape. And you also had to buy into what they were selling, which was teamwork, hard work, being in shape, and going on to the next level. And I appreciate everything they did for me.
Haneef, did you guys maintain a relationship after you graduated?
Well, when I graduated, no, I did. Well, on emails and stuff like that, I didn't maintain no, not too much. I did go back and I visited Doc Hines when I came back, and he was in there, so I was able to visit with him, quite a few times, but not him.
Doc Hines is Paul Hines, the football coach who came after Herman Booth.
Yes, that was
okay,
coach. So I was able to go back and touch base with him, but as far as Coach Heinsohn, I never was able to go back and touch base with him, but he instilled in me. It took me on throughout my college career and in life also.
That's great. Chris, how about you? What would you say about Coach Heinsohn and what he meant to you?
I echo everything that Stroke is saying. What I would add is that what the best. I'm trying to figure out a coach that he might. Bobby Knight is probably the coach closest to Mike Heinsohn.
Good one, Chris.
That much of a disciplinarian, and he was big on conditioning, being in shape, and doing your role, and honestly, and being the student part. And I can assure you guys that there was probably 15 point guards walking through TC Williams that could give me all I can handle. But they didn't go to class, or they didn't want to be a part of the team, or something. And honestly, I'm going to be honest with you all. I realized that early on, and I knew that would get me on the team. Playing defense and being fit, being part of the scheme, and doing what you're supposed to do will get me on the floor. And when you have that many players walking through TC, you could be that way. But I think that he was a good tactician. But we were in shape, and I knew when I got on the floor there was nobody in the universe that was in better shape.
Yes, sir.
So we could press all day. We could press. So I think he was good at getting us fit, getting us in shape. And I think the strategy was let's blow him out. Let's blow him out. It wasn't let's make it close. Make it close. We had a couple plays here and there, but I don't see him as a strategist. I never saw him as that. Everything Arnie said, I agree. I didn't see him as one. A real quick example: when we were downstate, we were getting blown out the first quarter. Remember, Arnie? We were 20-8 first quarter. Our strategy was slow the game before the game. We were losing 20-8 after the first quarter. He called it. He got us all together. And remember this, Arnie? He said, "Play street ball." That was it. That was it. And just like that, we were back in the game. So he knew when to let the dogs go. So,
yes, sir.
He always had his finger on the pulse. So I've never heard a coach say, he said, go in there and play street ball.
That's great. Yeah. So. It's a big stage. Just be yourself. And you guys probably relax and did your thing.
Street ball. All that stuff I was telling you, just play.
Yeah. So, if we talk about strategists, then we got to talk about Coach Don McCool, who's undoubtedly one of the best coaches in the history of the state. He's had an influence on so many other great coaches, such as Brian Metris, who's still coaching. I think Brian's up to 600 wins or something, or high school wins, and many more. So, Derek, why don't you tell us a little bit about Coach McCool?
Well, I mean, getting the chance to learn about him, he got a chance to know you as a person, and he worked very hard, but he had a system in place. And just like Chris was saying, you better be in shape because we were going to press you from the baseline to baseline. You know what I mean? And there were about 6 rules that he put in, but the first one is don't let your man catch the ball. So if we can stop you from catching the ball, you know what I mean? And then have the person who couldn't dribble, man, that was half of the battle that we had. We had a run and jump system that came in. But the real key is he was a student of the game. As I got on the coaching staff after I came back, I learned what he did. He went and learned from everybody. But probably his biggest mentor was Dean Smith and UNC. He went in there and they used to give him the opportunity to go into their film room and look at any film that they want. And then they would take an hour and spend time with him very specifically and his coaching staff. And it was just amazing. So he brought that to the table and he had created those networks and relationships. And I tell you what, when it came down to 5 minutes in the game, that guy had a strategy that he prepared us for. But you didn't know, as a kid, you didn't really just know. You didn't know how prepared you were, but there were certain things that he knew how to do that made him a great, great coach. And I didn't know him at the West Springfield. I heard about the West Springfield coaching pieces that he had. And, when you think about all the things that he did there with the talent that he had there, it was kind of the same thing. So he learned his players and he developed a system that actually fit the players that he had. And with Mount Vernon at that time, we had a lot of guys that could move, run up and down the floor. And so that's why we pressed. We made sure, but we pressed with a purpose. It wasn't just pressure. If I could turn you, somebody's coming. And if you didn't know they were coming, or we did it so much, there were times we took it off. So you're questioning whether somebody's coming or not, and it caused you to hesitate. So with me pressuring the ball, now I can steal the ball. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of things that happened that were very, very specific. But Coach McCool, who happens to be he's my kid's godfather.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because he was my second dad. You know what I mean? The man was just a great human being that did what he needed to do to just help you the best he can. But he also didn't play. He was gonna, whatever you could do, you could do. But he wanted to build your capacity from where you started to where you can be as great as you can be. So, you know, he's just a great, great guy. And, you know, he's down in Georgia right now and his family's doing pretty well. I mean, it's just, you know, he's got a herd of kids at great. So it's just, but it's beautiful to see. And he's still fun loving, you know, since the last time I seen him, and he's just a good guy. Great guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, what an inspiration. So, so Pete, now Coach Jenkins, you've already talked about what a personality was. You know, he's flamboyant. He had this larger than life, even though he wasn't a big guy, larger than life personality. But strategically, you guys ran very intricate sets. You got a sideline break. Everything was very organized and intricate. He was a very different coach than Coach, especially offensively, than Coach McCool and Coach Henson. So what was he like to play for?
We usually, outside of Tony Eric, we were all thought like guys, you know, so we weren't quick and we couldn't jump. So we had to be, you know, he used to say, be quick, but don't be in a hurry. That was the Reds' big thing. And he ran something very similar to was it Sonny Hill, the fast break that Sonny Hill did. And I benefited from it extremely because he mentioned in the podcast the other day that how did Pete score 30-some points a game? He said, well, Pete was a good player, but I also put him in position to get a lot of those. He took credit for a lot of them, and he deserved it. Because what we would do is we would advance the ball fast break, and we'd take an easy shot if you gave it to us. We'd kick the ball at the court every single time. And if you and we'd catch you asleep and get some easy shots. But I was always trailing opposite the ball, and I would flash to the ball. So for most big guys couldn't run as well as I could. So they had to hustle and get down, or I'd flash and get the ball at the post. And if they hustled and got to me and posted, I'd point back to Tommy Anaker, who was ever top of the key, and I'd seal him, and I'd just get it down the gut and shoot a jump hook over the front of the rim. And I probably scored 18 points a game on that one play, you know, for 3 years, you know, and then if I didn't get it then the ball would go to the other side and I'd run off the double screen and everybody dropped and I go one-on-one.
Yeah.
I had an 8 in high school, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like the first, second, and third option if we didn't get a layup. It was awesome, you know. So, but it was called as quick break. And it was more sophisticated than that, but I'm just talking about how it benefited me. We did that, and then he had a bunch of cool tresses we do. We used to do a West Virginia sideline trap. We would do a UCLA, you know, a tress that we would do, which was, you know, kind of we'd lay out the ball, let you get in and then trap it and make you throw the center field pass across court. So he was, you know, obviously a great coach. You know, we did all kinds of things. We were a man-to-man team unless we were outmatched and we'd play a zone, you know, if we had matchup problems. But you know, you know, he had a great system, you know, just like Don McCool and Henson at TC Williams. I remember that 77 game where he held the ball, you know, because we were outmanned, you know, and Coach Henson, he was a little shaken after that game because they were a lot better than us. They beat us 3 times by a lot. And we held the ball, and he was like this at the end of the game, and they beat us by like 3 points, like 21-18. But we couldn't run with them. They killed us 3 times that year. So
hey, Pete, did you play a lot in that game? The game where they held the ball?
No, I was a freshman. The only time I played, the next year, Arnie and I played in the semifinals against each other. You know, I think we won that game, but semifinals, because you had another guy named Mike Holton or something like that. Didn't you? Another big guy.
Phil Holton.
Yeah,
his name was James, but we called him Phil. His name was James Holton.
James Holton. Pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, we really did not deserve talent-wise to get to the regionals that year, but we came on strong a lot. Again, I probably got to give Red credit because we beat Robinson, we beat Langley that year with Doug Newberg and Johnson and those guys. We beat them the first game, then we beat TC Williams, and then we played Robinson, and they were just a little. You guys were just too strong for us that year. You had Greg Dennis and Mike Tissall, and then you had Kirtley and Streeter. And that was a good high school team, the 78 Robinson team. They were good.
It was.
We played them twice that year. You were a little better than us, you know. I think that was a great accomplishment that year, just to make it to the regionals, you know, finals that year. Yeah, so yeah, that was a good push down in Red Store.
Well, let's go back to that junior year. That's going to be the Derek's team wins the state championship, which is an amazing achievement.
That was sophomore year I was talking. That was our sophomore year.
Your sophomore year. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Haneef, my first question I wanted to ask you, I've always wanted, you were the top post player in the region. Who was tougher for you? Was Tim Kearney tougher or Mike Tissall? Who was a tougher matchup for you?
I never played against Tim Kearney, except that, and we played AAU together, and we played at Reds camp together. And, and then Stroker and all of us played in the Capital Classic team together. I'm great friends with Tim. But we never played. Now, I saw the regional championship game when TC Williams beat Marshall in the regionals. I was sitting in the stands. That was a great game, you know.
It was a great game. Well, Haneef, that was a game where John Thompson was there, and I was there too. So Haneef, what do you think? Who was a tougher matchup in the post for you? Was it Tim Kearney or was it Mike Tissall?
Mike Tissall.
Yeah,
Mike Tissall. Yeah. Mike was very tough, man. Kearney, he was lanky, but Mike, he had some weight with him. You had to put your bones down on the block with Mike. You had to put your bones down. Yeah, he was tough, man. So, he was tough.
Okay, so your junior year, you played varsity as a sophomore, and so going into your junior year, what was the prospects for TC? You're a year away from your run to state where you guys almost lost to Booker T in the semis. But your junior, what was the prospects going in, and how the junior year go?
You know what? Actually, Julian, we had I thought we had a great team that year. But I thought we had a great team. We had some big people and we had some nice guards. But I can tell you, the camaraderie wasn't there. Everyone wasn't buying into the program that Henson was trying to do, and unfortunately, we lost a lot of good players. And I can remember the time when Henson said because they were just coming off the undefeated stuff, so we thought we were something. And he was like, "You all haven't done nothing." I'm with SHIT. You know what I'm saying? You haven't done nothing. I don't know what you all think you're weak. I mean, we were very cocky that year, but we didn't do anything. We didn't do anything that year. We didn't have any chemistry at all. But I felt, based upon the players that we worked with and that we played with in the community, I thought we had a good team. But it just didn't fizzle out. It didn't fizzle out. That junior year was a tough one.
Yeah, Chris, did you see it the same way? And who eventually knocked you out of the region that year?
We didn't even get in the regionals. We
is that right?
We ended up with 9 players by the end of the season. We had about 13 players, and by the end we had 9 players.
Yep.
That's the season that Arnie, I don't know if you remember this, but we won the Christmas tournament.
Yeah.
Catholic. So we were riding high. We had beaten Booker T in the Christmas tournament championship. And we were down and for some reason, we were feeling ourselves. And for some reason, when we got back, the coach said, "You guys think you did something? You ain't do nothing."
Yeah.
And for some reason, we kind of, people started getting in trouble and players were getting kicked off the team, and we never meshed. And I was the point guard. And we had 2 guards, even though I didn't play against Dirk and them because I got benched before that game. We really thought, we were like, all right, we play Mount Vernon because we had beaten Groverton, who was the only team that beat Mount Vernon. We beat Groverton the first game
3 times. Mm-hmm.
Yep, which we were like, okay, so we thought we were players, but we never meshed.
Never meshed.
For some reason, we never meshed, and really, and Arnie and I, as the captains going into the next year, we said that'll never happen again.
Yep.
And so we made it a point that we were going to be like this. And when summer came around, we got together and we created a model. We were the Young Titans, and we're going to go on the state next year. And that all formed from us basically imploding. We imploded. We didn't even win. We didn't have a winning record. We were about 11 and 14, 13.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was the worst. I think.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Wow.
TC ever had.
So, well, it looks like Derek got out at just the right time.
No, Derek didn't whooped us that year, by the way.
But Derek transferred to Mount Vernon, and the first year you guys won the state title. You could have no idea that was all going to happen the first year at Mount Vernon.
No, I mean, I didn't know enough about the system. My goal was just that I didn't care who we played. Our goal was to beat them. You know what I mean? And just like Chris said, I mean, we lost to Groverton 3 out of the 4 times, and that was painful. That was extremely painful. But it also helped fuel us to, you know, to once we did get down in the states and all that stuff, and well, before the states, getting to the regional final, and then trying to beat, you know, one of the great teams that Woodson had. It was like, you know, we were determined to do what we needed to do. Part of the secret for us, you know, and I don't think it's any secret, you know, keeping the ball away from Pete Holbert. I mean, that was the secret to that game. But what people didn't realize, the way that we did that, we didn't do it just by trying to put a hand in his face, because he was big and he knew how to handle his body. So he can get open, but we put pressure on the guys who were trying to get him the ball. That's what the secret was. You know what I mean? We continually had pressure on them, so they didn't have a good direct line of sight to Pete. And, you know, and if I'm not mistaken, we either won the game by 1 or 2 points. So it was a battle. I mean, it was a battle. And we were very fortunate to have won that particular game, and then going down into, you know, down to UVA, I think it was, that's where we played. Yeah. We ended up playing against, God, who was that?
You played Maury. You played Maury.
Well, Petersburg was the first team. They were 25 and 0.
Mark West.
They were 25 and 0. Yeah, Mark West. I'll tell you what, Mark West was a great player, but he wasn't the guy we were worried about. Daryl Stith was the guy we were worried about, because he was like Barkley. Like we didn't have anybody that could physically handle him, and he could run the floor. Then their lineup was like 6'11", 6'8", 6'6", 6'6", and then 5'11". You know what I mean? It's like, goodness, what is up with that? So our tallest guy, who was 6'2", you know, wasn't even close to their lineup. But bottom line is, what happened is Coach McCool developed a strategy, and just like I said, he understood us. We had to go into a point where we had to, you know, so we're running and gunning in Fairfax County, but then we had to put the brakes on, and we had certain rules of who can shoot and when they can shoot when we played against Petersburg. And then once we played against them, we beat them in overtime. You know what I mean? And barely got out of that. And then the next game, you know, it was just like what was said about, you know, what we need to do, play street ball. And, you know, because Maury was just so fast. So that was just it was a blur of a game. And, you know, as you go through and you look at that, that was, you know, the ability that Coach McCool had to actually maneuver and change the situation in 3 different games that were really critical for us to win. So we were, you know, it was one of those things, man. When you go out there, you look at it as a point guard, you need to understand what the coach is trying to do, and you need to be able to buy in. But then you got to be able to help everybody else understand. And Pete, I wanted to say this to you when you were talking about coming to JMU. If you'd have come to JMU, I'd have got you the ball. I got it right in your pocket. Scored every time. Yeah. There's no question I would have done that, because I knew how well you could shoot. Yeah. You know, so hey man, that'd have been phenomenal. You would have helped us tremendously, no question. Yeah. But if you go through and we look at that, man, it's just I think for all of us, it was just a thrill to be able to go out there and compete at the high level. And if we didn't compete at the highest levels, we weren't going to be able to win, because we had so much talent in our area. And that's what made us gave us the opportunity to go out there Wednesday.
Eric, how good was Groveton, and how good were Wilder and Gary Ford?
Oh my God. Well, Gary Ford, I don't, man, what kind of question is that? Gary Ford was
Yes, sir.
similar. I'm gonna say it this way. He was kind of like a Magic Johnson because he was a tall guy, but
Yeah, but he had that handle.
point guard. You know what I mean? So he was very difficult for people to deal with. And then Wilder, he had a turnaround jump shot. Man, like, how do you stop that thing? I mean, but their whole team, I mean, they were just as good as we were at every level. And that was proven as we played them and lost to them 3 times. And we had to figure out a way to beat them that was different. We couldn't play our style and beat them. We had to play a different style to beat them. So, I think, Pete, you guys beat Groveton, right?
It's funny. We were flip-flopping all year as 1 and 2, now Vernon and Woodson.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a real good team in our district, Thomas Jefferson, that gave you all a tough game, the first game of the regionals. I don't know.
With the 7-footer. Yeah, I remember that.
No, Thomas Jefferson High School, TJ. Y'all
But
played.
didn't they have a 7-footer?
No, they had a guy named Kevin Westfall, those 6'6", so it was my size.
Okay, well, he looked like 7 foot to me.
He was good. He was good. And that they had a guard named Timmy Danehauer. Real good. And Keith Nathers. They were good. And we beat them both times in home and away, and they beat us in the district. And we didn't have any losses other than the NAFTA that year. We had like a 20-0 run. But what I was saying is, I knew your district was good because I saw you all play against Niehoff and Tommy Carroll. They had a nice,
high school.
B did. And they gave you a good game that you all beat them. And it was just one of those nights where we played on Tuesdays and Fridays that you had like a Saturday game. So I said, I'm going to go check out Tommy Carroll because I grew up playing with Tommy Carroll. And I saw y'all play that, and it was a great game. So your district was tough. But I wasn't worried about Groveton. For some reason, I was just like, and I had I twisted my ankle real bad, goofing around in a layup line with my best friend. That probably would have been cut, but Red kept him because he was my best friend. And I had a high ankle sprain. So no excuses that I was wearing a 14 on one foot and like an 11 on the other the whole tournament. And I was a little worried about Gary Ford because he was a high flyer, but I didn't think we were going to lose to them, And they had a really good team. I was worried about Mount Vernon, That's all I was worried about, And probably too much, because we squeaked by, I think we beat Groveton pretty good, probably by like 14 points. It wasn't even that. I had to check the box score, but I really wasn't worried about it. And then we played Robinson the first game, but it was a depleted Robinson team because they had lost, they lost Dennis 2 years ago, and they lost Streeter and Todd Curley, who played quarterback at UVA. And really all they had that year was Tissot and Ellison, It was kind of a light year for Robinson, so I wasn't worried about them in the first round. I wasn't worried about Groveton. I was worried about you guys in the finals. Yeah.
Well, I have to say thank you for beating Groveton because, we would have had to do something different, and that would have been a challenge, because they seem to have our number. But you guys beat them, and it was like, oh, look at that. So, we had to focus in on you all. But we knew that you were the key. And, as you go through and you look at that, it's definitely a testament to your skill sets because, man, if we couldn't stop you, we were done. We understood that.
Yeah.
So, the way that we did it was pressure everybody else so they couldn't get you the ball. So that was our secret. And we still almost lost that game. So it was kind of crazy, man. You guys.
Yeah, it was a great game.
Yeah.
I just want to say, man, when Derek and them won state, I didn't think I'd react this way, but you would think that we won because I was down there rooting for these guys so hard because you knew them. We knew Jay Majors, you knew Eric Sellers, you know Junior Brown, Wainwright, you knew them all. And so when they won state, you were like, this is really cool. And it really motivated us for the next year. But to see those guys win state, man, I was partying down like I had won it. So it was real cool to see them with that accomplishment. It was really, really cool.
Yeah,
I feel that way. I thought, whatever. But when they won, man, it was huge.
Myself and Greg Bladergrone drove down and went to both those games. His brother was in medical school down there, and we stayed with him and his wife. and I saw the Mount Vernon and the Maury game. I saw y'all win the state championship. We sat there. We were rooting for you guys. You know,
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
That was
I
huge.
appreciate it.
yeah, we were there. Yeah.
Well, so Derek's on top of the world. Unfortunately, the whole world is going to come. They're going to come calling for him Mount Vernon next year. Mount Vernon's got a target on their chest for next year. But let's go to your senior year. Haneef, you're a big recruit now going into your senior year. You're getting some national notice. Now, I guess I didn't even realize you guys had such a bad junior year. But were the prospects better for your senior year? I mean, obviously, it was a great season.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was a great season. Like Chris said, we nicknamed ourselves the young. Our practice uniforms were nylon, and we didn't have the real long shorts over our knees. We had the little baby shorts, and we ran in tank tops. Okay, so look, me and Chris, we go down in the locker room, and we say, look, we're not running today. It's like 11 degrees. We're not running today. We don't care what Doc or Henson say. And we put it, and so we took a vote. Everybody said, yeah, we're not running today. So when Doc and Henson them came in the locker room, they were like, okay, what's going on, fellas? Why don't you have your sweats on? We're like, man, Doc, we're not running today, man. We're not running today. It's too cold out there. We're not running today. We already voted for it, man. Chris, yeah. Man, do you know what Doc said? He said, I'm going to tell you something right now. You got 5 minutes to get out of there. you have 5 minutes to get outside and run that triangle. When I tell you it was cold, Chris, it was like 11 something degrees. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm telling you, it was just that camaraderie. And that, as a matter of fact, that was like one of my quickest times that I ran the triangle. Of course, I came in last place, like as always. But that was one of the quickest times that that I came in that we ran the triangle. But to get back to your question, Junior, that senior year was phenomenal. We had a lot of chemistry. We had a lot of guys that knew what we had to do. Chris was phenomenal at the point guard. He was the general, and he ran everything. I mean, and I'm gonna tell you another person too, Mark Palmer. Just out of nowhere, Mark Palmer just popped up. We like, who is this guy here? Mark Palmer was a very important. Yeah, and Leon Washington, may he rest in peace. He was something else too, man. And I'll never forget that time when we played against Marshall, and we were on the run going to the state championship, and we were down. Chris, I think we were down 2 points or something like that. And Chris hit that shot from the corner with like 2 seconds left to take us down the state. And I was underneath the basket, and I looked up, and I saw the ball come straight through the net. And I just ran down the other end of the court trying to follow Chris. And that picture is in the Gazette now. And that was a phenomenal year. We had a great time. Unfortunately, we came up short against Booker T. Washington 4 overtimes, but we gave it our best shot.
Yeah, it was a great year. How about you, Chris? What are some of your memories from your senior year?
Little Willie.
Got all the
And we had about 25 people on basketball teams. And that summer we won like 4 summer leagues. We played Fairfax County, a number 11 boys club. We played a tournament. We played in Alexandria. So that's when we started realizing we had a lot of talent. So we started meshing then. We started to grow and meld. And honestly, I wasn't even the point guard in most of those teams. We had a guy named Teeny Muldrow, who was a point guard, and I was the 2. But for some reason, Henson never played him. I don't know why to this day. But we had some players, and the camaraderie we built. The Little Willie, and when TC won state, I could see how with Little Willie being the floor general, because this guy was a coach. He was a phenom. He was phenomenal. And so he was the one who kind of helped us build a team. So once school started, we were like, we're going to state. We thought we would. I mean, you couldn't tell us otherwise. So we came in with that mindset, and we kind of do the blueprint of what we needed to do. I mean, we knew what our roles were when the season started, and Coach Henson was smart enough to tap into that and just build off where we were. And so we were able to we only had a couple hiccups. We had one hiccup. We went to a Christmas tournament where we, in the beginning of the season, we won a game. We lost to Tommy Carroll and Tony Ferris at Lee. We lost to Lee every year. I never beat Lee. So we lost them. Then we went to a Christmas tournament and lost.
Tommy Carroll is the best 8th grade player in the whole damn Beltway.
He was my roommate in college for a year, by the way. So, but once we figured that out, we started winning. We won like 16 games in a row, and we knew we were going to be difficult to beat. So it was phenomenal just going through all the games. I mean, we were worried about. I was worried about playing Mount Vernon. That didn't materialize. But we thought that we could get it, and we did regional. And honestly, we were even cocky enough to think that we got to Garfield, we was gonna whip that butt too. But we did, so we kind of looked past Booker T.
Yeah,
Arnie, I think you'd agree.
Yeah, we sure did.
We had beat them the year before in the Christmas tournament.
Yeah.
And then, so we were like, okay, once we beat Booker T, we're gonna play Garfield. And Garfield in the same hotel as us, and we kind of saw them. And we that day before, we were like, yeah, we'll see y'all tomorrow. And,
Garfield was tough.
no, like Derek said, we were talking trash.
Yeah, I'm just there, man. Man, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
It was great. It was a great ride. It was great.
So my sister's team, Robinson, made a state run that year, and I think they played their semifinal game on Wednesday for some reason. So my parents and I went down there. We watched my sister play, and their game was Wednesday, and then the final was on Saturday. So we didn't stay for your game. So we came home, and I couldn't get a ride back. I was only an 8th grader, and I was trying to get a ride with Derek Hensley because his dad coached Lake Braddock. So I listened to the whole game on the radio. I'll never forget it. They had that guy, Billy Walker, who ended up being, I think, a 20-point a game scorer at Norfolk State. And he scored 39 against you guys in overtime. And, it's interesting, just listening to the radio. Every time the radio commentator would describe the game, he would just say, William Walker. And he just.
I think the mistake we made against that guy looking back was, I think we respected him too much. We kind of let him come to us. We never really attacked him like we always did. We kind of, we picked him up. And first of all, I wasn't quick enough. I was never that quick. But I had Arnie Russell, so I could direct you to where we're going and stuff. But with this guy, he was so fast that he would when by the time he got to me, he was running full speed because we weren't playing a full court. He was coming down. He was running full speed, and we never really figured that out. And at the end, when he came down and scored a couple times, I always think we should just played him straight up. We were told don't foul, and we were winning both times, and he kind of walked right by us.
Right by.
Yeah, but the guy was fast, but he wasn't something. I think we gave him too much respect. I think we went in there trying not to lose, as opposed
Chris,
to.
I had my hand full with daggone Bruce Smith.
Oh yeah, he was a beast, and he was only like in the 10th grade. He's an 11th grader, I think. Yeah, and they had some ball players though, and they had about 25 people on that team. They had a deep bench, and we only played like 8 people, which was I didn't even come out the game. Myself and Leroy Butler, the other guard, we played every second of a 4 overtime game. We had some horses on the bench that should have gotten in that game.
Yeah.
Hey, did they have a guy named Julius Norman, Doc Norman on that
Julius
team?
Norman was there the 11th grade year, Arnie. That's the one. That's the one they had when we beat them in the Christmas tournament.
Yeah.
Norman and Billy Walker.
Yeah.
We beat them that year. But Julius Norman was the man. He was the man, not Billy Walker, in our 11th grade year.
Yeah.
So Billy Walker and Othell Wilson put on a show in the final. I don't know if you guys stayed around to watch that, but they put on a show.
We were there.
You were there. Okay. Yeah, it was a great matchup. And then Billy's younger brother, Lamont Walker, they won the state title in '85, beat Lee, and Lamont went to Virginia State and played with a buddy of mine. Ended up being a good player. He wasn't fast like his older brother, but he was a good player. Haneef, Bruce Smith used to always brag about how good he was in basketball and TV. And I don't remember him being that good in basketball. I remember him being a big guy. I thought you guys handled him.
I think Arnie. I mean. He might not remember it, I think, because I had the stat sheet and I studied it for like 10 years. Like 22 rebounds. And you all don't know this, but we never gave the ball to Arnie. He had to get his own.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
I mean, we were like, if he was open, we gave it to him, but we never. Is this right? Am I telling this true, Stroker?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
He's
You're
like,
right.
he'll get his own.
Yeah,
Okay.
And,
yeah.
and
you're
that,
right.
that was it. If he's open, you get it to him, which is my
Yes,
role.
sir.
But if
Yes,
he's
sir.
not open, he was expected
Yes,
to get his own, so
Yes,
he had to eat on his own. So
Yes, sir.
we didn't have any
Yes, sir.
plays set up for him. You know, we look inside first.
Mhm.
But we had Palmer and Dion, those two guys, and Sam who was the two, Leroy Butler. But he gave Bruce Smith all he can handle. Bruce Smith wasn't ready to pass. He showed that he was a football player that day.
Mark Palmer and his sister Sharon Palmer, they were good players. I used to see Mark. Mark was coaching a team outside of Charlottesville. I used to referee his games, many years ago. But let's go to Derek Steele. So Derek, as Chris had said earlier, you guys graduated, or maybe it's Pete. You guys graduated a lot of players your senior year, and then some of the trouble that they were going to experience a couple of years later was starting to brew already. So let's just talk about your senior year a little bit.
Well, I think, when we talk about the senior year, again, it goes back to Hammond. And this is why this is important, because my senior year, 3 people, including myself, it was Mike Reed, I'm missing somebody, Mike Reed, myself, and one other guy. I can see his face, can't remember his name right now. But we all came from Hammond. Like they had transferred, but they came from Hammond because they didn't think they were going to play at TC. You know what I mean? And, they moved out and all that stuff, but then it became the recruiting scandal. You know what I mean? Where's these guys? Why are all these guys leaving Alexandria to come to play Mount Vernon? Well, I think part of the problem was, and we actually had to go to one of the courts. There was kind of a kangaroo court that was put together to explain to people what was happening, and nobody was really recruiting anybody. I just happened to be a player. Now think about this. I didn't freshman year. I played my sophomore year. I started as a sophomore, and then I left to go to Mount Vernon. We went to state. You got a lot of people that want to come just because, if Derek could go there and play, I know I could play there. I mean, I think that's what happened. And as we went through that process, you had a lot of people who didn't understand that. But then we were 14-2 that year. And then what happened is they put a pause on the game that we were supposed to play. We were number 1, Lee was number 2. They put a pause on the game, and they said that we had a player who was ineligible. And I think there was Danny Buffett was the other guy. And they were saying that he was not legal, and he didn't play that much, but he played 7 games. So they took the 7 games away from us. They put the other guy, God, what is that dude's name? Light-skinned dude. Big.
It wasn't Jay Major. It wasn't Jay Major.
No, it was Jay. Jay was a senior, and I was a senior. So Jay was gone.
Wainwright, was it Wainwright?
No. He played at Hammond.
Okay.
God, he would kill me. If I saw him today, I'd give him a hug. But the bottom line is, because I know who he is, I just can't think of his name right now. He came from Hammond, and they also said that he was an illegal player. So they didn't, and they had no evidence for the second guy because they said he can't play. And he was one of our top people. And so they wouldn't allow him to play. They stripped us from 7 games, and then they made us play the next game against Lee. And it was just, oh my God. There were certain things that happened in that game that, if I sit up here and talk about it, it's like, I'm crying the blues. But there was no way we were winning that game. We lost by 2. And you talk about somebody who was hot, because I knew that we were one of the best teams in the region. And for them to do that the way that they did it, because they're saying there was this recruiting scandal, it was painful, And then later, when Frank Smith moved, they really went after Mount Vernon then. Again, it had to be a recruiting thing. But, in talking to Frank, his family was not going to let him play at TC. And he moved. So, but Frank was a player now. Now you talk about an All-American kind of type player. So, all those things happened and all the situations occurred, you know, to really hurt us. I mean, it hurt the scenario, but it's still, you know, you still had a lot of people that did really well at Mount Vernon, and we were excited about that. So it was definitely a learning experience, something that you want to kind of wonder about, you think about. But as you go through, you know, you had Hammond and GW that filled into TC. If you weren't top 6 at your school or top 5 at your school, you weren't gonna play at TC.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So people, you know, you had some people who said, well, I'm not gonna be top 6. Might as well go somewhere else to play. You know what I mean? And that was the thing, that because we were so good and we won state, man, the next year, man, they came at us. And it was just frustrating as a person when you sit up here and you look at that, because as kids, we got nothing to do with that. We're gonna try to go to a place where we could play. You know what I mean? But you had the adults that were fighting whatever kind of battle they battled. And we were caught up in this scandal. And next thing we know, we were in a situation where we couldn't go into the state championship or even the regional. I think it was, you can only have 1 team from each region that went. Now it's like 4 teams for each region that goes, but 1 team. So when
Derek, I think Hayfield went, that was Hayfield. I think Hayfield and Lee went that year. I think Hayfield went by default. It was something like that.
Look,
we played Ken Edel and them, and I know Tom lost to Tim Kearney and those guys. So it was 2, but I never knew the story until you just told me that.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
Man, you talk about crazy, man. It was, oh my God. It was a tough pill to swallow, because I had to go from a point guard actually to 2 guard. Mitch Ryan became kind of the point guard, especially defensively. And we were talented. We had a really, really good team, because, you know, Coach McCool had developed, just like what Pete was saying, you had a freshman group, you had a sophomore group, and that group had blossomed and developed. So my senior year, we had a good team. You know, it wasn't the same as our, you know, when I was a junior, but we were a good team. And then they had people coming in underneath them that were even better. So that's why you saw for about a 10-year period, Mount Vernon was really strong.
Derek, I don't know if you remember this, but we scrimmaged y'all that year, and you were playing football. Y'all were in the region, y'all were in the championship, so we scrimmaged you guys. Remember that, Arnie?
I didn't get a chance to play. I didn't play that game.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Yep. So
I was mad about it too.
Y'all gave us a go without Derek Steele in those scrimmages. So
we had a good team.
Well, I knew y'all were good. So
yeah, they had a good squad.
Well, Derek, you won the state in football your senior year, right?
No, good man, goodness, don't even. So we won the region in football. We went down and we went down and lost the game to, was it Pulaski? No, Pulaski was the other team. I can't even remember the team that we lost to. I was so mad about that. We lost 13 to 10. 13 to 10. We were down on the goal. Oh man, it just, we should never have lost that game. But anyway, so we didn't win the state championship, but we won the region.
Yeah. Oh well. I never even got out of district, so I went to Robinson. So that's so you know, at least you guys got down to state. Pete, how about your senior year? Because like Derek, you guys have graduated a lot your junior year, so it's probably you probably had even more of a burden your senior year.
Yeah, we reloaded. It was good for me personally, because it was kind of the year where I got to kind of showcase what I could do. You know, I knew I was going to be a shooting guard and a small forward in college, so Red let me play on the wing. You know, he didn't make me go inside. We had a 6'8" guy named Don Shulbury and a 6'4" guy. You know, they played the 4 and the 5. And that summer, I become real good friends with Tommy Amaker, you know, and he was this young kid, and he came up to me and he goes, "Hey, we got him." Red goes, I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Tommy, he's going to come here and be a freshman." And I was like, "You're kidding me." So I kind of took him under my wing. He was like my baby brother. You know, I took him on recruiting trips, you know, like to Maryland, and we ate in the training table, and you know, sat on the trust table at all the games, and I just took him with me everywhere. I love the guy. Tony's an easy guy to like, but I try to teach him everything I did right and to stay away from the things I did wrong, because Tony's kind of the perfect guy, and I didn't want to mess him up, So I didn't take him out to drink his first beer or anything like that. His mom used to lock the door and say, "Look, Pete, he's 14 years old. You're 18. Do things like a 14-year-old kid." So we kept it G-rated. We'd go get a piece of chicken at Roy Rogers, and it's a nice bar, and I'd take him home. We didn't do anything, but it was cool. I got to hang out with Tommy, and we've been friends our whole life, and and then, some new guys got to play. We weren't that good. I don't think I ever played in a team that lost like 8 games or something like that. Woodson was always like 21-3 or 22-2. I think my senior year, I forget what that record was. It was a little ugly. I think we lost 8 or 9 games, and we lost the first round of the regional tournament at the West Stringfield, and they beat us bad too. We lost by like 20 points. But we managed to. That
was Charles Lambert and Glenn Dieter.
And he beat Tommy to death. Charles Lambert was a full-grown man. I mean, he was built, and he pressed Tommy the whole game and hand checked him. And Tommy weighed about 98 pounds or something like that, and he beat Tommy up pretty good that day, And they had a guy named Diebert or something that played at Townsend State. He was pretty good, but. Anyhow, it was a good year. Got some guys that had a chance to play, and we got to go up and play Arnie and Johnstown, Pennsylvania. We played Ben Franklin that year, the #1 ranked team in the country, and Gary Stringer was on that team. Your college,
Good.
Gary was
bad guy, Pete. Gary Springer, yes sir, bad guy, man.
Woo! Could he play? And they had a guy named Richie Adams on that team that was a center at UNLV. They had Kenny Hutchison that started at St. John's. They had Lonnie Green. And their whole team started major D1. And they didn't even win the state championship. Nat Doherty's team beat a Holy Trinity. But we played those guys that year. And Gary's son, incidentally, just was a first-round draft pick. He's like the 14th guy. 22nd guy, I think. 22nd guy. But so we played them. We played Beaver Falls that year. They had Dwight Collins and a guy named Roland that went to St. John's. We played some really good teams. We were ranked in Streets and Smith that year, pre-season, 25th in the country. I don't know if we were 25th in Northern Virginia that year, but it was
good old Red Chickens.
Behind me, because I think I was like second team All-American in Streets and Smith magazine that year. And we had a 6'8" guy, and no one knew how good he was. But no one knew about Tony yet. But we didn't have a whole lot of talent that year. It was interesting that my biggest takeaway from that year that I enjoyed the most is just the friendship I developed with Tommy. That was I spent basically a year trying to educate him, about Woodson and, high school. And I think I did a pretty good job, Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Well, Haneef, let's talk about your guys' college career. So you ended up going to Iona. Tell us a little bit about Iona and who you played with, your coach, and how things went there.
Well, it's so funny as you say that. Pete had just mentioned Gary Springer. It's one summer that I went up some of my family is from New York. So I go up to Harlem and I just go outside and I see a basketball court outside. So I asked my mom, I said, I'm going down to the basketball court. And I see this guy down there playing, just shooting around. So I go down there to shoot around with him. And so he said, "You want to play a one-on-one?" So I said, "Sure, man, let's get it on. Let's get it on." Crushed me. Man, when I tell you, he crushed me. I'm telling you, right, we played 2 games. He won 2. We was playing 3 games. He 2 out of 3. I mean, he absolutely crushed me. So the next year, the same year, so I happened to go to Iona, and lo and behold, Gary Springer is on the team. And so so I was like, man, I remember you. We remembered each other playing on the basketball court that time. But was totally disappointed about my college career when it first started, because I I was highly recruited by John Thompson. And when he came into my home, and I was totally excited about that. And I said, yes. And he was like, Mr. and Mrs. Russell, we'd like your son to come and play with Georgetown. And I said, are you kidding me? So, yeah, so you kidding me? Yes, indeed. And so that was the year that I was, it was myself and Fred Brown, Gene Smith, I can't remember the other guy name. And
was his name Knight, Arnie? Knight?
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I was
Knight? Was his name Knight?
Billy Martin, I think it was. I'm not sure what it was. Okay. I was recruited to take Bebe Durham's place. And during that summer, I was totally excited. Everyone was excited, man. I mean, I'm telling you, everyone was excited, man. Haneef Shakur is going to Georgetown. Oh my God. Oh my God. So we had to take a lot of people from this area. And when I was over in Georgetown going to summer school, we took a lot of people and we went out to California. And lo and behold, I got in some trouble out there. And John Thompson was like, son, we don't do this here, but I'm going to have to send you back home, which was totally, totally disappointing. Totally disappointing. And I came back home. I remember everyone saying, Stroker, man, what happened? I'm like, man, that took a lot for me to get over, so and he was like, I'll let you go to, I got a place out in San Diego City College. So I went out there and, I'm going to tell you, fellas, I got all F's because I totally was devastated that I had missed the opportunity to play with Georgetown because that was the year. Had I gone on with them, I would have been with Patrick. I would have been on that championship team with Patrick Ewing, Fred Brown. That whole year when Fred Brown threw the ball away, and then they came back, I would have been in that squad. So I went out to San Diego, and I didn't do anything. I was just trying to lick my wounds, and then I realized that Jim Valvano was one of the top coaches that was trying to get me out there. So I called him up, but before then he had went to NC State. So I called up Pat Kennedy. I had gone to some of his camps during the summer, and he said, by all means, come out, let's get a visit. So I went out to Iona College. And other than that, when I went to Iona College, I saw Gary Springer. And the thing about it, I had to stick Gary Springer every single day at practice, which made my defensive post game extraordinary because he was a beast. I mean, that man was hard to stop, man. Gary Springer was hard to stop. So, and then I continued on, graduated in 1985, 86. I got my degree in humanities. Because it was one thing about Alexandria, when you went to college, there's a lot of our good basketball players, they would go to school, but they would never come back with a degree. And I made it a point that even though I didn't go to Georgetown, I was not going to come back to Alexandria without a degree. Mm-hmm. So I came back with a degree. I was sixth man. We went to the tournament. I think it was 3 straight years in the MAC tournament. We lost to Othell Wilson that first year by 1 point. Othell Wilson, and then we lost to, I don't know if you guys remember Frederick the Great for Loyola Chicago, I think it was. And then we lost to someone else. So we made it to the NCAA tournament 3 times in a row, which was very good in our part. But we never could get that, we never could win that first game. Other than that, I enjoyed myself at Iona College. It was good. I became a man then. Yep.
Hey, Haneef, did you play with Jeff Rowland, a future Bullets player?
Jeff left. Jeff was already gone when I came there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He was an Iona legend as well. So, hey, Chris, why don't you go next? You ended up going to Mary Washington, and you played with a whole bunch of Northern Virginia players.
What I was doing, I was like I told you, I was a better football player. So I had a few like Division II offers for football. I was a defensive back, but I realized that I wasn't pro material, and I didn't think I wanted to spend that much time playing football. And so Division III was Mary Washington, and Dirk, you weren't there, but we were doing the practicing for the a preliminary game. I was trying out for the preliminary game. Dirk, you were playing baseball or something. But anyway, you were the preliminary team, so I was tried out for that, and I got cut. And the Murray Washington coach was there. And so when he was there, I still had football offers, but I didn't really want it. So he said, come to Mary Washington. Now, I was a poor kid, so I didn't get a scholarship, but he could figure out how I could get the grant and aid, et cetera, et cetera. And I was a pretty good student. And so I got Mary Washington. And so Mary Washington was a school, if you all don't know, about 1971, it was all girls school. And when I was going in 80, it was like 12-1. The coach was trying to build a basketball team. So Tommy Carroll, who was a hell of a baseball player, Tommy Carroll, whatever his baseball scholarship had fallen through. So he and I had gotten recruited at the same time. And then we had this guy named Frank Gilmore who went to Gonzaga. And he was a bigger guy. He's more like, he reminds you of Palmer. He would, he couldn't jump, white kid couldn't jump, but he was a beast. He was All-American Division III. So we were the coup to Mary Washington, who was like, we were like 2-25 the year before. So we came in and we turned the program around. We were like 16-11 my freshman year. But I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I was down there and it was just too many distractions. My older brother, who was a firefighter, he came and visited me and he was like, man, what are you going to major in? And I said, I don't know. He said, if you don't know what you're going to major in, you're never going to get out of here because this is crazy. So he said, apply for it. He told me. So I applied for fire department while I was a freshman because I didn't know what I wanted to major in. So my second year when I was on academic probation, the fire department called. So I was like Arnie said, I didn't have the degree, but 39 years later, I'm still in the fire department. So I went to the Fairfax County Fire Department, so I retired from there, and now I work for Alexandria Fire Department.
Oh yes, sir. Oh yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir.
So I've been doing that. So that was my foggy college experience.
Yeah, it's tough to go to all girls
crazy,
college.
Man. It was definitely not the place for me at that time.
Yeah. I mean,
it was a great school, and we had great friends that I still had to this day. So it was definitely a great experience.
How about you, Derek? You ended up going to James Madison, which had been an all-girls school, I believe, maybe 10 years or so earlier. And you got there at a time when you guys were just turning the program around. You're gonna play in some big games.
Yeah, it was very interesting because getting there, I know they were looking for a point guard, and again, I went on a football scholarship, and I got a chance to watch them play the year before. And I'm looking at their point guard. His name was Charles Fisher. And Charles is a pretty good player, but Charles couldn't dribble. He couldn't go left. He could go right. And I'm sitting up here like, oh, I said, is he the starting point guard? And so I was saying, I could play there if I ever got a chance. And getting the chance, it was great because I went right after Charles. I'm like, look, either you're going to dribble left or I'm going to start. I said, it's going to be one of the two. And he learned how to dribble left because I would not let him go right at all, period. And I was in his grill. But as we go through, we really had a phenomenal 4 years there. I mean, 3 years especially, but it was 4 years for me, and I was grateful. And we got a chance to take this division. We just moved into the Division I era, probably 3 years earlier or something. I didn't know anything about that. My coach wrote a book about that. He called it Dare to Dream. And, it kind of highlights all the things that happened. But, our first year, we played against a lot of good players. I mean, we went out to New York, and we had to play in one of the classics that were out there. And it was just kind of crazy playing against, people like Lou Carnesecca, you know what I mean? We're playing against coaches like that. It's like, what in the world? What are we doing? You know what I mean?
I hear you.
But it was great. I mean, it was great. You went out there and we competed with everybody. And so we played in that game, and that was great. But then we got on a pretty good run, and we got ourselves into the NCAA tournament the first year. And the first year that we played, we had to play against Georgetown. You know what I mean? And it was Georgetown, and then we played again, and we beat them. How in the world we beat Georgetown, I have no idea, but we did. But it was helped. I had to help Charles dribble left because I knew that these guys were not going, they were going to dog him if he couldn't do that. So he was prepared for that. I didn't play that much at all during that first scenario, but I know that practice wise, and I was probably 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes of per game for the first year. But the next year I played a lot more. And so the first year we went Georgetown, and then we lost to Notre Dame. So the notoriety of the school, started to come around, and people were like, JMU who? And then the next year we went out and beat Ohio State, and that really gave us a lot of credibility. And then we played against Carolina with Jordan coming in. But again, Jordan, we knew about Jordan, but the people that we couldn't deal with was Worthy and Perkins. I mean, goodness, Worthy was, he's incredible. I made a move. Actually went around Jordan, went around somebody else, and I'm shooting a layup. I knew it was a layup. I'm like, I'm scoring against these dudes. And Worthy comes across the lane and blocks the shot at the top of the square.
Brad Doherty.
Brad Doherty. Oh man, whatever. I was so mad that we're still mad about losing that game because we lost to Carolina by 2, and it was the same. Really? We lost to them by 2, and then they went out to win the national championship against Georgetown. And then the next year we played against West Virginia. We beat them, and then we played against Carolina again. Jordan wasn't having it. He's like, "Oh no, I remember what you guys did to me last time." And so so the impact of that, it helped James Madison get themselves on the map. So we were very thankful to be able to do that. And, you get Charles Fisher, David DuPont, Linton Towns, Tyrone Shoulders, Dan Rulin, and I'm sure Steve Blackman. He was somebody that was from the Georgetown area. And we just had a ball. We went out there and played and just competed against everybody. And we just wanted to win. I mean, that's what it boiled down to. Putting James Madison on the map is just a phenomenal thing. I'm down here at James Madison right now, working on some things to help continue to build the school. But man, I'm really proud of that because there's no substitute for what we did at that point in time. Our 1982 team actually was put into the James Madison Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's great.
That was great. And then I hit a last second shot on the to get us into the playoffs. We were playing against William and Mary and hit a last second shot, kind of ran around the court, did a flip. But in doing that, it gave me an opportunity to go into the as a part of the Hall of Fame for that tournament. I was a co-tournament MVP and all that stuff.
That's great.
I'm 5'8", 5'8.5". I really want to be 5'9", but I just never made it that high. But to have that opportunity to be able to do that in the CAA and be, MVP, and they put me on what they call the Legends team because of that moment. And, you can't beat that as a kid. So I was very thankful to have that opportunity and to help James Madison be put on the map.
Well, you did a great job. I used to love when you guys would come up to the PE building at George Mason. It was such a great rivalry. Andy Bolden, John Niehoff, they had Andre Gaddy. Maybe he was a little older than you, but they had some great players. It was always a great rivalry. Carlos Yates.
That dude. Hey, look, I tried to tell my coach. I said, "Coach, this guy can shoot." They're like, "No, he's a freshman. He's 36 points. 36 points as a freshman."
Bad boy.
Back to the coaches, I told him. I said, "I told y'all. I told you."
Yeah, he was a killer. He was a killer. So Pete, you ended up going to University of Maryland, and you were a huge recruit. And obviously you didn't get the playing time you probably were looking for, but you had a great experience, and you got to know Lynn Bias' son as well.
Well, it was great. Just on Carlos and I used to play one-on-one every day in summer, and neither one of us could beat each other. He had the ball, he'd score. I had the ball, I'd score. But we couldn't get 2 points up. The game would be 57-58, and we'd start fouling. We used to just play basketball one-on-one for hours, Carlos and I.
That's great.
We were like dead even, Yeah. But yeah, I love Carlos. Sorry to see him pass. Well, Maryland, I mean, my gosh, they won the ACC and were ranked 8th in the country when I was coming in. And we got myself, Charles Pittman, who played the NBA, who was the #1 junior college player in the country, and Steve Rivers out of Long Island Lutheran. They considered us a top 5 recruiting class in the country. And we had a team that was ranked 8th in the country and had all 5 starters coming back. So the Sporting News had us #1 in the country in 1980, 81. A couple teams might have had us 2nd or 3rd, but we were 1 and 2 in every poll. And we started off thinking we were that good. We beat everybody. We went up to Syracuse, won the first Carrier Classic, and beat Leo Robin and Danny Shays and Marty Head and all those guys. And we're about 7 or 8-0. Then we went to Louisville and played Rodney McRae, Scooter McRae, Charles Smith, Jerry Ease, and got rocked. It was an awakening, And so we had, it was a little bumpy that year. We had Buck Williams, Albert King, 2 lottery picks. Buck went 3rd. Albert went 10th in the NBA draft that year. We had Ernie Graham. If he didn't have this bunch of off-court issues, he probably would have been a 1st-round draft pick. Greg Manning was on that team. We had Reggie Jackson out of Philadelphia, Dutch Norley out of NAFTA. I mean, we were loaded in addition to everybody else. So it was kind of tough to get any scratch, with that kind of talent. And a lot of guys left. And the next year we reloaded with Adrian Branch at the shooting guard and small forward. So I got to play quite a bit my sophomore year. It's kind of I always had my red jersey on. If you had your white jersey on, you were 2nd team. We only had 12 guys on the team back then. So the last 5 guys were on the 2nd team. If you had your red jersey, you're either starting or you're the 6th or 7th man. And that's really all lefty play is 6 or 7 guys. So I had my red jersey on all year. I think I averaged like 6 points a game, about 12 minutes, a game I played. Felt like I played enough and did enough that the next year he was going to give me a legit chance to start. And they put in that 19-foot, 6-inch 3-point shot. I don't know if y'all remember that, but it was just right inside the top of the key. And everyone said, "Oh, this Teats golden." But one problem, our top recruit that year was Lynn Bias. And I was going to transfer. I went into Lefty's office and sat down and said, "Look, I'm too good to sit on the bench. I might not be All-American at Maryland, but I'm too good. I can play for too many colleges." And so I was either going to transfer to West Virginia, or I was going to go to Florida State or Florida. And those are the 3 schools I was leaving. So, well, don't do it. We got this 19-foot, 6-inch 3-point shot. You're going to start. And I'm going to make Leonard Dias compete against Hernan Deal for the power forward. Adrian's going to play small forward. You're going to do the shooting guard. And then I'm going to let Jeff Atkins play the point guard. And I think we had Jeff Baxter. Let those 2 guys do the point guard. And then we had Ben Coleman center. So he played the Yugoslavian Olympic team, the first game. And he splits time with me and Steve Rivers. And we each had 18 points. We each played 20 minutes. We had 18 points. We lost the game. And I said, well, we did well enough. He's not going to make any changes here. And we had 36 points. There's no, and, we used the 19-foot 6-point shot. Well, the next game we played Penn State, and he starts at Vernon. And Lynn Bias, Hernan Deal, Lenny Bias came off the bench. Jeff Atkins was a point guard. And I played like 6 minutes. And Steve Rivers played like 6 minutes. And now I've pretty much used my eligibility for my junior year. I played a couple of games. And in those days, you're kind of done then. I mean, people didn't transfer after that. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I got played a little bit. I felt like I didn't go on with Red. I didn't go on with my dad to sit down and say, "Hey, this wasn't the situation I thought it was going to be." I'm not going to say anything bad about the program. I just want to go somewhere else and play. I'm a good player, and there's a lot of schools that could use me. I think I'm a 20-point-a-game scorer at a lot of colleges, and I just want to go have fun and play. And Lefty, I won't get into what he said, but he lit into me pretty good, and he basically taught me into staying. And it was disappointing. I think that was the biggest mistake I ever had in my career. I should have just stuck to my guns. He was going to give me my release and leave. I should have left then. But, I stuck it out. You know, of course, you know, played behind Lynn Bias. You know, not saying I'm not as good as him. Played behind, you know, Adrian Branch the last 2 years, and you know, just graduated, went on with my life. You know, so it was good, but I kind of felt like I wasted my career. All the time that I put into it individually, and my parents, you know, moving to play for Red Jenkins and what Red did. I mean, I lived basketball. You know, I did everything right, and my coaches did everything right. And you know, to have the career I had, it was disappointing. I should have gone somewhere I played. You know, so but you know, no regrets. You know, time goes on. I don't really worry about it. I don't talk about it unless I'm doing something like this, a podcast, or I'm sitting down with people like you guys that I haven't seen in 40 years. And they go, what happened at Maryland, Pete? Why didn't you play? And I said, well, you're under Alder King, you're under Lynn Bias. Those guys were pretty good. We're only playing 6 or 7 guys. Try to keep those guys out, you know? They go, oh, yeah. It's so funny. You're talking to Dassel guys. They go, yeah, those guys were really good. You know, they scratch their heads. I said, you know, hey, man, either you start or you don't play at Maryland. And ironically, Lefty and I, in closing, I'm in Florida right now. I'm living down here in Florida with my Florida jersey on. But I was 35 years in Virginia Beach, and Lefty's from that area. And my best friend in that area, Derry Davis, and his dad his dad was Lefty's best friend. So I had lunch with Lefty once a week for the last 35 years, you know. And you know, we talk about this stuff all the time, and he's getting older now, and he's losing his memory a little bit, and he thinks I played. He thinks I was like a starter, and he talks about it like, oh, T was my best shooter on the team, and you know, he won these games for us. I'm like, Lefty, I let him just roll with it. I sat on the bench, you know, I never played. We became pretty good friends out of all of it. You know, we joke about it now, but Lefty doesn't look at me as a guy that sat on the bench. He looks at me as one of his players, you know, which is cool. And he doesn't look at me any different than Tom McMillan or John Lucas that was an All-American or something. He looks at us all the same, you know. So it ended up netting out a pretty good experience, but definitely a void in my life is, you know, what if I went somewhere where I could have played, you know? You know, could I have you know, at least played overseas and made some money for a while, and you know, maybe developed a career somehow in basketball, you know. But that experience did put a sour taste in my mouth, and I said, you know, I'm just going to get my degree, move on, you know, get in business, you know. So you know, so college was very unique. I played on some great teams, you know. Lefty's only ACC championship team in '84. We went to the NCAA tournament 4 times. You know, usually it seems like we always lost in the Sweet 16, but, you know, and played with some great players, you know, and being Lynn Bias's roommate was very unique. You know, everyone always asked me, did he do drugs? Did he, you know, I said, no, Lenny didn't even drink beer, you know. You know, I'm 2 years older than him. So whatever he got into after that was, you know, short-term, experimental. He did it, you know, and, you know, he had a bad reaction to it. But Lenny was a great guy, and you know, was one of my best friends in college, you know, and the best player I'd ever played against, you know. So it was kind of neat, you know, saying that you're Lynn Bias's roommate and you guarded him every day in practice, like you guarded Gary Stringer, you know. Lynn Bias is like a couple notches over that, you know.
Yep.
You know, so
Pete, you know, Pete, I was thinking, you know, as a coach in Lefty's position, you never know when you're going to have injuries. You never know when you're going to need a shooter.
Yeah.
A coach has every incentive to try to keep 10th, 11th, 12th, wherever. Those guys could be very important in the year. I know when I was at UVA, I played on the JV team, and John Johnson and Mel Kennedy got suspended the last year. So all of a sudden they had 9 players. I almost got a chance. I don't think I ever would hit the floor, but you just never know when you're going to have something happen. You need those guys on your bench.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, and I also want to tell you guys, yeah, I was a pretty good player, but I would have done anything to have a career you guys had. I mean, you guys were gods to a lot of guys, young guys that came after you. We looked up to you guys. I remember when I used to play Derek and later on in adult leagues, he didn't even know who I was, but I knew he was. And every time he was on the court, I had something to prove to him. And he's probably saying, why is this guy going a million miles an hour? He's out there just trying to play his game and stuff. But I always had something to prove because I didn't have a high school career or a college career that you guys had. So I think, you guys should be really proud of you. I know 3 of you guys have retired, which is a great achievement. I know Pete's done real well in business. So it's great to talk to you guys and to hear about what you've done. Why don't we end by just you guys give a few minutes each about what your basketball career has meant to you afterwards. I mean, what did it mean, in retrospect, what did your career mean to you? Because I know it's a large part of your identity. Haneef, why don't you go first?
From the moment that I put the basketball in my hand, man, I always knew it was something that I wanted to achieve in. It got me notoriety. I was able to get a good education from college. I was able to play overseas. I played overseas a couple of years in Sweden. And I was able to get paid to do something that I love. I was even able to coach some young kids a little while when I got out. It's been phenomenal. I love the game of basketball. I'm not doing too much with it now as far as going out and coaching kids, but basketball is still always in my heart. What I do now is try to give my grandkids. I have 13 grandkids, so I try to give them. I try to instill with them the importance of character and the importance of teamwork and stuff like that. Whatever sport they want to be in. So basketball has been great with me, and just to sit here and talk to these 3 guys right here, man, I tell you, I got chills on my back of my arm. I mean, I'm looking at Derek right now in Westover right now. And that boy, I tell you, Derek used to be up there. That boy could run all day, every day. And I'm looking at Pete Holbert right here. And I mean, I would, oh my God, Pete, every time, man, I would just, oh my God, Pete Holbert, man, I'm actually sitting here talking to one of the greatest players in Northern Virginia basketball. And not to mention my main man, Chris Thompson. Are you kidding me? So much we have gone through. So basketball has been great to me. I may never played in the NBA, but it has afforded me to have a lot of great relationships that I cherish right now, and I'm going to pass on to my grandkids. So hey, Julie, I just want to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, to sit here and be a part of this forum and just sit back and talk about some of the great times, So I want to thank y'all, man.
Oh no, it's great. It's great to meet you because I admired you from afar. You were the enforcer. We were all afraid of you. You're big bad Arnie Russell's in the building. And I used to watch you and Mike Tissell just throw bodies around. It was a great time to be a basketball fan.
Oh yeah.
So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So Chris, why don't you go next? What did your basketball career mean to you as a firefighter and as a father and all those things?
Be honest with you, as a firefighter, for years in the fire department, we'd have these younger people come through, and to this day, I'm undefeated. I'm talking last Saturday, I played a guy in the fire department.
Was it right?
Spanked his ass, huh? One-on-one. He's an older guy, he's like 55, and he had gotten injured. And he played basketball forever. And I hadn't played since I was like 45. And I said, hey, man, you need to quit. I said, now I can whip you. That's how you're right. And so he said, no, you can't whip me. I said, I can whip you. So long story short, I'm sitting here aching now because I had to spank him. But what basketball brought me over the years, and we've always played. We played ball against Dirk. Mitch Ryan used to work for the. He used to work as a counselor for the children down in the Fairfax County system, juvenile system, and he and Othell Wilson worked together. And for years, we used to play against those guys. Never beat us. And here's the secret. The secret was because the firefighters weren't always in better shape. We just got to work out on duty. So I'll say all that to say that what that has brought me was the friendships that I've had for life, for a lifetime. I had 4 brothers, so we played ball forever. I have 2 sons, never played, neither one of them.
Interesting.
They never played any sports. My one son played baseball, and I never pushed it on them. 2 daughters, never played. And so they hear me talk, and sometimes I pull out some stuff, and this is what we did back in the day. But I don't push it on them. I coached years ago. In fact, I coached TC's 19. Matter of fact, I coached Frank Smith. Frank, when he was still at TC, when he was in, I was like 20, 21, 22 years old, I was coaching summer leagues like Little Willie did for us. So I coached for a minute, but basketball really to me is relationships. It's brought relationships to this day. And I don't coach, I coach football. I coach football for TC. So I've never coached at a high level for basketball. But basketball to me is relationships. Seeing these guys right here bringing back vivid memories about basketball.
Chris, this is T. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Chris, this is T.
Yep.
My best friend in high school is a guy named Jim Bonzano. He used to be a paramedic fire chief in Arlington, Alexandria. He retired after 40 years. You know crazy Jim Bonzano?
Yeah, but I just know of him because I worked in Fairfax and we'd run calls with him. I never really talked, but I knew that was Chief Bonzano.
Yeah,
I know him. So it's a small fraternity.
Yeah.
Fairfax, Alexandria, Arlington, they're all like.
He told me he knew you.
Yeah, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, he knows who you are. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So basketball, I think I'm retired now. I'm pushing 60. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. But I had one last hurrah. So it's really cool, man. It's my second favorite sport after football. But basketball had my best relationships. I've had my best my friendships like Arnie and my boys from 4 of our guys from the basketball team became firefighters. So we're still friends to this day. So really for us, and we were all still playing in the fire department. So we were all playing for. Nobody knew that we played that long.
Cool. That's cool, man.
Me, Pete, Sam, Willie Bailey, and Marky Bates.
Oh, Willie Bailey, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's what it means to me, man. Just the relationships and stuff like this is just great.
Okay, well, let's. Derek, you can be next. Derek, you would have to be considered one of the greatest point guards in the history of the Northern region, and I know you're going to deflect from that, but you won a state championship. You were a great player. You weren't a great scorer, but you knew how to win games. You knew how to lead a team, and you had a tremendous college career at the point. I remember I refereed your games. You were at Mount Vernon. You did a super job as a coach. What does basketball mean to you, and what has it meant to your life?
Well, here's the messed up thing about, when you talk about not being a great scorer, I actually didn't score that well in my junior year, but my senior year, I was either first or second leading scorer, I think, in my senior.
Is that right?
That was kind of crazy because you had all these guys that could score, but I was more of a slasher. If we had a 3-point line, I'd probably have been okay, especially at the top of the key. But I learned how to shoot the ball a little bit better because I had to, in order for us to be any better than we need to. But what it has meant to me is it actually was a doorway back into the educational system. Right now I'm an assistant principal back at Mount Vernon High School. I'd run a program called AVID. I did that for 10 years within Fairfax County, and I'm 37 years into the educational field. So
wow.
I'm contemplating whether I'm going to graduate here soon or not. But bottom line is, what it did is it really helped me, create opportunities and open up doors for other people. You know what I mean? Whether it be sports, whether it be whether it be athletics, whether it be academics, whether it be whatever it was, I wanted people to have the opportunities that I had, but they were going to have to work for it. So it taught me how to teach other people how to do what they needed to do. So I went into the coaching arena for a little bit, and I did that with Coach McCool, learned a lot from him. But I coached both football and basketball. When I walked away from that, I used those coaching tools to actually, like I said, run a program with the AVID for 10 years within the county. But I'm also a national staff developer for the AVID program to this day. I work with a lot of people throughout the country. It just opened up doors for me to go help more people. So, that's kind of my life's work and the things that that I do now. But I know that sports opened that door for me.
That's great, Derek. Thanks for jumping on again. This is your second one. Did a great job again. And Pete, I'm a sales guy like you, and I know a lot of sales guys are very competitive guys. lot of former athletes. So I assume your basketball career meant a lot to your sales career.
Yeah, it did. And I hate to keep going back and giving Red credit for stuff, but Red had this theory in high school. He wanted you to rest on Sundays, that was the Sabbath day, go to church with your family. He didn't want you, an open gym and rolling an ankle, and also, when you're young, your body needed a chance to rest, and muscles to grow and that type thing. But he was real big on, lifting weights, and for PE, like strength and conditioning. And then you had school, now you got work. So I do that now. I lift weights in the morning. I still do the same things he's taught me. I work instead of go to school. And then after school, you worked on your craft. You worked on basketball. Well, now I do my cardio. I run with my dog and that type thing. And then, he's a big family guy. And then you're supposed to have dinner with your family and the people you love and not be a big partier, get organized and get prepared for the next day. And I kind of just got it. I've done that my whole life, and now instead of homework, it's like calling guys about that new biologics product that I've got at night and setting out, but it's the same pattern, and I go to church on Sunday still, I really have not changed my lifestyle, So I think really the biggest thing that basketball taught me is fitness for life. I stayed fit and to be organized, and being an athlete and competitive, you want to make good money and sales and provide for your family and the people you love and care about. It's the same thing. You're just substituting. You're substituting school for work. You're substituting basketball for jogging. You're substituting homework for getting organized for your career. At night. It's the same thing. So I just think he kind of set a foundation for me early on, and I got sidetracked there when I was young. I wasn't that disciplined. I got out of college, I did my job, and I wanted to go out and have fun. But I've kind of gotten reeled back in, and I do appreciate that. He kind of taught me that. My dad was real hands off. When I went to Woodson, he kind of said, "Okay, Red, you got him." He kind of let Red kind of direct me. So it was kind of cool. That was a big takeaway from that. And then the whole basketball experience. Playing at a high level like Maryland and being on the McDonald's All-American team, I got friends like Nat Doherty and, some pretty high level guys. I pick up the phone and, call Sam Perkins, I got Michael Jordan's number on my cell phone, I can call some, pretty cool guys that I've met. I don't blow them up. I don't call them that often. But the people I got to meet playing at Maryland and playing on the McDonald's All-American team, it's pretty cool, and we keep saying we're going to have these get-togethers, and every time they have the McDonald's All-American teams, have each year come, and during, some, I don't have a kid, I've got a stepdaughter, but people from your family and that type thing. And we've had some pretty cool trips, but we haven't really organized. We're going to organize. 1980 hasn't done it yet. Some of the other classes have, but it's been really cool. Some of the people that I've met and. I know. I just really think I just thank God for growing up in Northern Virginia and Fairfax when I did. It was just such a wonderful place. It's a little too crowded for me now. I know you're there and still loving it, but I moved from Fairfax to Virginia Beach, and now Virginia Beach is too fast paced for me. So I'm in so St. Augustine, Florida is retirees. I'm like I'll be 60 next month, and I'm like one of the youngest people in this town. And I'm starting to like this taste down here. So
yeah, it's funny. A lot of the old coaches, Jim Warden from TC, who came in after you guys, and Beatrice, a lot of the guys, they meet at a IHOP every Tuesday somewhere. They talk about the old games, and one day Pete's going to show up as well. But look, guys, this has been great. I'm glad you guys did it. Hopefully, we'll do other podcasts with different different combinations, but I think people are really going to enjoy, seeing you guys together. And it was a great dialogue. I mean, you guys had such good memories of great time. It was a great time in my life. I'll never forget those games. So I'm glad you guys did it and jumped on, and let's keep in close contact.
Yes, keep in touch. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Julian, thanks for getting this together. It was great seeing you guys, man.
Great seeing
Yeah,
you.
anytime. We'll do it again, guys.
Take care,
Thank you.
fellas.
Take care, brother.
Stroker, very good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Pete, good to see you.
Good to see
Sir.
you. Get everybody's contact information through Julian.
Yeah,
I'll-
exactly what I was going to say.
I'll share it around. Yeah.
That'll work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Again.
All right, have a good
All
one.
right. Okay.
Blessings.
Take care.